Hello, my name is Joe DeFors. I'm co-founder and principal officer of Comprehensive Emergency Management Associates, CEMA for short. We're a full-service emergency planning, training, and exercise firm based in East Lansing, Michigan. I'll be working with Charlotte School's video and technical staff to produce a series of brief emergency preparedness training videos that we call 10 for the team, meaning we'll be shooting for just a brief 10 or 15 minutes for each of these training videos. CEMA first became involved with Charlotte back in 2003 when we spent nearly a year with staff and administration to develop the emergency plans, go kits, and other supporting materials that you currently use in your schools and buildings. Since it's been a decade, Charlotte Public Schools wisely invited CEMA back to review and update your emergency plans, conduct training, and assist you with drilling and disaster exercising. Some of you may recognize me. In the first phase of this year's project, I met with virtually all areas of district operations and every building principal. This process is a part of what we call a hazard and vulnerability assessment. In an HVA, we identify what actually threatens the district and where we are in our current planning for those issues. With that information in hand, we then go through virtually every page of your current emergency planning and policy to add and update as necessary to meet the challenges of today's complex world. Those portions of our project are now completed, so we now move into the training phase. Because we understand how very busy you are and how many things already demand your time and attention, we've elected to identify the most important training topics for emergency preparedness and deliver them to you in a web-based video format. This format will allow you to access the training, download any necessary support materials, and partake of it in a time and a place of your own choosing for your own convenience. We will specifically endeavor to keep these trainings short. 10 to 15 minutes is our goal. Thus again, the title, 10 for the team. Our plan is to come out with a new training topic on a monthly basis, but we'll keep all of them and their ancillary materials on the website should you wish to return to a topic, use it for a future training, or recommend it to a new staff member or a substitute. Our topic for today will be emergency planning review and update. Some of the other topics we've identified for the future will be building access controls, advanced drilling practices, bomb threats and suspicious mail handling, advanced lockdown practices, and emergency go kits. If you have suggestions for how to improve this video training series, please submit your ideas to Mr. Mark Rosecrans, Associate Superintendent for Operations. With that, let's get started. So our first topic for this series is called Emergency Planning Review and Update. At this point, if you haven't already, please download the Emergency Action Checklist for your particular position before continuing. Charlotte Public Schools cares deeply about the safety and welfare of students, staff, and visitors in the district. CEMA worked with Charlotte Public Schools back in 2003 and 2004 to formulate your current emergency plans. We were invited back this year to update them. Final updated plans, documents, and drills will be arriving in the coming months. This video series is one feature of this most recent planning cycle. We know that educators are busy. This video series will be a series of only 10 to 15 minute video trainings. And again, we've said this earlier, they're designed to be convenient and respectful of you and your busy schedules. New topics will be covered each month, and all of this material will be shared on the website. The opening screen of each training topic will remind you about downloaded materials or other resources that will be helpful as you view that particular training topic. Emergency planners use a 4-step approach to emergency planning. Step number 1 is called prevent. In that step, we simply look at your world and your environment and we ask ourselves, can we make any challenging, dangerous, risky things in your environment entirely go away? Where we're successful with that, then we simply don't have to plan for those things. The second step is called prepare. In this step, we prepare for those issues that can cause hazards, problems, crises to the district in the future. That preparedness comes in the form of your plans and policies in terms of emergency preparedness. The third step is respond. Also in our planning, we're not only creating written plans and paperwork to support your efforts, but we also plan out with a fair amount of detail specific actions that are necessary and required for a safe and effective response. And finally, the fourth step in the emergency preparedness steps for planning is the recovery step. And in that step, we simply remind ourselves that once the crisis is over, we probably aren't yet ready to entirely return to normal operations. So in this fourth recovery step, we simply go through the actions and steps necessary to get ourselves out of an emergency phase of operations in the district and back into entirely normal operations. Again, 4 steps in emergency planning: prevent, prepare, respond, and recover. In emergency planning, we also have 3 phases that we talk about, and I won't be covering these with you in every single video, but again, this first video is to give you a little bit of background and foundation in the emergency planning process. The 3 phases of emergency planning are plan, train, and exercise, and they're quite simple and intuitive when you get into them a bit. Planning simply means we need to make plans, but plans are only paper, and we can have no reasonable expectation of a good outcome if we simply drop off paperwork to each and every one of you and wait for the crisis to occur. So the second phase of emergency planning is training. We take those plans up and we train, as we are in this video series. We train on the expected actions and thinking necessary to successfully mitigate an emergency. And finally, we exercise. Exercise is the fancy name for what we call in the schools world drilling. Exercises are simply simulated practice activities that put you under a little bit more pressure, and we ask you to respond appropriately as you've planned and trained. When the exercise is over, we look at the outcomes, we ask ourselves what went well and what didn't go so well, and we adjust our planning and training accordingly, and the cycle begins again. Plan, train, exercise. Historically, old plans looked like phone books. They were huge, complex, sometimes ran into the hundreds of pages, and were rarely useful in a real emergency. You should know, and if you don't, then we would ask you at this point to make sure that you find your own emergency action checklist in your classroom, and hopefully you've downloaded it for this video as well. That modern emergency planning has moved toward highly specific, simple documents that actually are your friend in an emergency. The emergency action checklists at Charlotte Public Schools are that tool for you. Think of them as your friend and confidant in times of emergencies. As I said earlier, emergency action checklists are what you will utilize in a real emergency. Please pick the one up that you've downloaded and have with you at this point. Notice that as you flip through the tabs, there are 3 standard areas in every single one of the topics, no matter which topic you're referring to at the moment. When, and the when means simply when do I use this particular tab in my checklist. The notification, how will I be notified in the event of an emergency of this type? And finally, actions. These are the recommended actions that we've pre-planned for you to perform in the event of this type of an emergency. Emergency action checklists are further divided into 6 categories, and those relate to the 6 key roles we've discovered in our work in the district. These are the superintendent, the principals, the teachers, food service staff, transportation staff, and custodial staff. Each of those 6 different groups has very different concerns and expected actions if we hope to mitigate an emergency effectively and efficiently. Therefore, each has a different and unique emergency action checklist. Each emergency action checklist covers 5 specific types of events: evacuations, bomb threats or suspicious packages, shelter for severe weather, shelter in place for hazardous materials releases, and lockdown. Most of your checklists will also have 1 or 2 additional sections with things such as emergency contacts or other information important to your and unique to your specific position. Let's take a look at our emergency action checklist. So please pull out your package that you've prepared for this training session. You'll notice on the cover, and all the covers look essentially the same, there's 2 key components. One is the cover notes the position to which this emergency action checklist speaks. And again, we've talked about the positions: superintendent, principal, teacher, food service, transportation, and custodian. So make sure you have the right one for your particular position. We've also provided a space where you can note exactly which building you're in. While we seek continuity throughout the district in our response and our emergency planning, we do recognize that certain buildings may need to deviate or want to add some specifics to these particular checklists and plans. So it's important, once you've made any modifications to the plan, to note exactly which building the one in front of you pertains to, so that you know that you have the right one at a crucial moment. Slide number 14 is an example of the internal pages of all of your emergency action guidelines. And again, you can see those 3 major sections. At the top, the when section. When do I use this particular page? When is this particular event in force, enacted? Second is the notification section. How will we speak to you? Will it be through the public address system, a phone call, an email? On some occasions, we may even use a runner, an individual sent to your room to privately give you a particular communication. And the final section is the actions section. This is by far the most important, because these are the critical actions necessary for you to take care of business, for your role and responsibilities in this disaster. You'll note that these actions are simple, concise statements, very often beginning with a verb, because they are actions. They're things that we want you to do in the case of this type of emergency. Now, obviously, the actions vary for the type of emergency, and again, they also vary given your particular position, role, and responsibilities. This concludes this first of our brand new 10 for the Team video training exercises for Charlotte Public Schools. I hope that you take this initiative as a very, very strong statement that Charlotte Public Schools cares about you, the staff, the students, and the visitors, the entire community of Charlotte Public Schools. They have a long-standing and powerful commitment to emergency preparedness that we all should be very, very proud of. But you are the most important and key item in a successful outcome to a crisis. Each individual, each of you, must understand your role and responsibilities. You must know where your support tools and materials are and have them at hand. And finally, you must be prepared to act correctly and decisively in a crisis. You are the key to successful implementation of the Charlotte Public Schools Emergency Planning Project. I'm going to end with a quote from President Dwight Eisenhower. He's credited with this statement that goes all the way back to the days of World War II. Failing to plan is planning to fail. It's a statement and a quote that we've adopted in the emergency planning world because it almost perfectly captures how we feel about this very, very important endeavor of emergency preparedness. You can pretend an issue isn't there, we can wish it away, but when the day comes, you will hope and pray that you have planned, because only then can we have any confidence that we're going to act well, effectively, and efficiently. Thank you for your time and attention today. We'll see you again next month with number 2 in our 10 for the Team video series. Thank you.